Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be showing you guys how to sew a vintage shirt. In case you haven't seen the video of the sewing aspect, I'll put a link in the description below and you can just simply check the channel gallery. If this is your first time here, let me show you guys something quickly right here. This is the sewing workshop main channel. If you are viewing it on your phone, right now this is the main channel and this is what it's going to look like. Consider hitting the subscribe button and also turn on the bell notification and click on all to see more video that we upload. Here on the videos side, that is the video of the vintage shirt, the cutting aspect. So I'll advise you to watch the video first before you watch the sewing aspect right here. You can see that. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So first, this is the stage in which we are during after the cutting. We already cut the front and back and the side and the yoke. So what I'll be doing on this one first is that I'll be trimming out this part. I'll be trimming something out of this. The reason why I'm trimming this out is because because you know that we are not going to have a facing, right? This is the what we're going to use for the facing. That's why we added an extra, like a large facing on the front. So I will not be using the ruffle edges on the side. So you know that the facing is not going to apply to the down part of the shirt itself. So here I'm going to cut out 1.5 inches. You can see that. And the reason why I'm cutting it that way, if I'm cutting a fabric that is not a straight line, I can cut it this way before cutting it that. But because the fabric is of straight line, so I have to have a straight line in the front. So I'll be able to like slant it at the back. I hope you guys understand. So I'm just going to trim it. You can see that. Make sure you are not trimming your main fabric just from there. Just trim it straight down. You can see what we have now. So the side is trimmed down. So after trimming it, what I will be doing now is I'm going to weave those edges. I'm going to weave the front side. I'm going to weave it now so I can show you guys. So the next thing I did is on the sleeve itself, I fold my 3 inches that I sewed that we added during the cutting aspect. So after folding it now, I'm going to make a notch at the edge, which is where our stitch is going to, so that we can make our stitch. You can see that. So I'm going to also weave these edges so I can stitch my sleeve straight. So I can bend it and simply stitch it on the sleeve before joining it to the bodice. Also, I'm just taking you guys through what I've did before we get into the sewing table. So on our yoke, as you can see, I just fold just like 1 inch inside. You can see that, so I'll be able to like stitch it to the back. Very simple. So I would advise you guys to just go through all this and just do it before we get into the sewing aspect. And this is our back. I did nothing on the back, so we can continue the construction. So now first I already weave the edges of the front. You can see that this is for the front. This is the front of the vintage shirt. So I weave the edge. You can see that. Very simple. I just weaved it. And on the sleeve itself, I weave the edge of the sleeve. You can see that also. So I'm going to stitch both of the sleeve straight and I'm going to join the shoulder. So the first thing I'll be doing on the sewing machine now, I'm going to stitch the sleeve. I'm just going to stitch it down first, so I'll have it somewhere. Let me just off the light, okay? I'm just going to make a straight stitch from here. I'm just going to stitch the two, just straight. Make sure your hand is straight because your stitches is going to be obvious on the sleeve. So make sure your hand is straight. So here is the sleeve. You can see what we have. You're just going to take your time to iron it so that you're going to have a balanced stitch. You can see that. So after that, the next thing I'm going to do is on the bodice itself, I'll be stitching the shoulder. So first, here with me, this is the back. You can see that. So the right side of the fabric will be facing the machine. You can see that. This is the right side. So the right side is facing the machine, just like that. So the wrong side is facing me. So with the front itself, so I will be taking the right side of the shoulder. So just pay attention. You can see this is how the shirt is supposed to be. You can see that. So this is the right side. So the wrong side will be facing the wrong side of the back itself. You can see. So the right side is facing me. So I'll be taking the yoke. So I'll make sure the right side of my yoke is facing the right side of my shirt. You see that? So I hope you guys understand what I'm doing. So just make sure you are aligning it the right way, or just follow me step by step, exactly as I'm explaining it to you. So you can see that. So make sure the shoulder are very aligned and they're smooth. Now we are going to stitch our overlap, which is half of an inch. So from here, so I'll be joining the half inches. Make sure your hand is straight. Just half inch. Just like that. After joining that, I'm going to do the same thing on the second shoulder. Just put your second front in it, just like that. You can see. Put your yoke on it. Make sure the edges are aligned very well. You can see that. Make sure the edges are aligned very well. Then we are going to stitch our half inch. Then our half inch. Just like that. After that, I'm going to take my time to iron the edges. Then I'll be joining my sleeve and locking the side. So after ironing the shoulder, the next thing I'll be doing now is to stitch my yoke to the bodice. You can see that. Make sure your hand is very straight when you're doing this. It is very, very important. And I'll be stitching at the tip of the yoke itself. You can see that. I'll be stitching the tip of the yoke. You can see. You can see that. So this is what we're going to have. You can see how smooth the edge is. That's very, very important. So the next thing we're going to do now is to make a notch on our shoulder. I'm going to make sure it's straight so that you can have a center point. So after joining the shoulder, you can see what we're going to have like this. So I need to just align this very well. So align both the armhole together. And make sure this one too is straight. You can see that. So this is what we're going to have. See that? So all the neck parts are not actually part of it. You can see. So we're still going to like cut all those extra on the neck side. So just make sure you connect the two armhole together. Sorry, the two armhole together so you can make your notch. You can see that. So at the center point, you're going to make a notch for our sleeve. You can see that. So here also align the two armhole together. Just like that. I'm going to make my notch just like there. So after notching that, I'm going to join the sleeve and I'm going to close the side also before we cut out our collar and join it. So after notching the edge, I also notched the edge of my sleeve also. On my sleeve, I notched the edge also. So from here, I'm just going to connect it. Make sure it is aligned. You can see, make sure the notch area is aligned. So you can simply stitch it together. And when you're stitching this, make sure you're not drawing either of the fabric. Make sure you're not drawing either of the fabric. That's very, very important. Make sure you're not drawing the fabric. Just lay it and balance and let it balance and just stitch it straight. So your armhole side, all around your armhole. You can see. So after stitching the sleeve, this is what we're going to have. You can see. Some people use double stitch on the sleeve, but it's a vintage set, so most people don't do double stitch. So you can see the inside. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to weave the edge of the sleeve, the inner side, so I can lock the side. So I already weaved the inside, you can see. So I already weaved it. What I'll be doing now is I'm going to like lock my sleeve and my bodice. Sometimes some of the vintage shirts come with double stitch at the sleeve, but a casual outfit does not need all those actually. So I mostly use my own with just a straight stitch, just like that. But if you're sewing a corporate shirt, and I've made a video on that, just check the channel. It is mostly a double stitch on the sleeve side. So on the sleeve now, so what I added for my sleeve measurement, I'm just going to join it. Whatsoever you added for your sleeve measurement, join it. So on the side, don't forget we added an extra 2 inches on the side. So just measure your 2 inches. So I'll be stitching 2 inches on the side also, just straight down. You can see that. At this point, just measure your 2 inches and I'm going to just stitch it straight down. Make sure it is straight and keep measuring your 2 inches till you get an accurate straight line. So after locking the side, I lock the both sides. So this is what we're going to have now. You can see this is our open front. So what I did here is that in order to hold this side down, I put an Amy gum just to hold it down so it will not be. But I put it just to an half, so I did not put it to that extent of the neck. You can see that. So now to cut the collar is going to end at that place. So what I'll be doing now is I will be, in order to get the measurement for my collar, I have to like measure it round. From here, I'm going to take my measurement. Make sure you're not drawing the fabric. Make sure it is balanced. Just like that, you can see. Just measure it round. You can see. Just measure it round. You can see that. So now we have 18. That will be for our collar. So for the collar now, I'll be cutting 18 inches. So here, the first thing I'll be doing now is I will have to like cut out this. I will have to trim out this edge. But before you trim it out, make sure it is balanced. Make sure that place is very balanced. That part is very important. Make sure it is balanced so that you have to be able to like use it for the turn up of the neck. You can, I hope you guys understand. So lay it very flat on the surface, because that place has to like curve out for our turn up. So at this place now, I'm going to, you can see that I'm simply going to make sure it is balanced. That is important. I'll simply cut it out. So you're going to have a shape like this if you open it up. You can see, so we can use it as a turn up for the collar itself. So we are going to have our collar stitch like that. So I hope you guys understand that. So I'm going to do the same thing on the second side also. So at this place, this is the end of our collar. So I'm going to make a notch at that point. This way our collar is going to end. You can see that. So on this one also, make sure it is aligned very well. You can see that. And at that edge also where our collar is going to end, I'm going to make a notch right there. You can see. So that's what we're going to have. So after doing that, the next thing we're going to do is to, so those notch, I'm going to align it together so I can get a center point for my collar. So at that edge, I'm going to notch it also. I hope you guys are following me step by step what I'm doing. If you follow me step by step, you're going to get exactly the same results. So that's our center point for the collar, just like that. I believe you can see that. So now I'll be cutting 18 inches for my collar. So in order to do that, I'll be using a light stay. It's an air stay, so it's a collar stay, but a medium hard. It's not that hard as a collar stay. So I cut a circumference, a wideness of 2.5 on this one, and a length of 18. It's supposed to be 18 inches, so I'm going to just cut out the half inches there. You can see that. So here I have 18 inches. You can see that. So I'm going to fold it into two. So after folding into two, you can see that. I'll be taking out 1 inch from here, because I don't want the back to be too tall. I want it to be just smooth. And but if you want it to be tall, you can go for something taller than that. You can take maybe like an half inch from that side. So here I'm going to cuff that edge. You can see. You can see what we have. So I'm going to simply trim it out. You see that? So this is what we're going to have. So now at this edge also, I'm going to have to like cut maybe like a quarter of an inch so it can cap on the neck itself. So it will be able to like have a little bit of cuff on the neck itself. So just a quarter of an inch. I'm going to just align it. You can see that. Just a quarter of an inch. Now I'm going to simply trim it out. You can see that. So this is what we're going to have. So I'm just going to make a notch at the center point. So after that, this is the right side of the fabric, and at the wrong side of the fabric, I'm going to place my collar just there, and I'm going to gum it on the fabric itself. You can see that. So after ironing it, it is gummed to the fabric. You can see that. The next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut out this edge. And I'm going to leave an extra space at that place. That is very important. So I hope you can see what I'm doing. I'm leaving like a quarter of an inch at that place so that I'll be able to like turn it inside. I'll be able to like use it as a turn up at that edge. So here also at the side, I'm going to leave a quarter of an inch also. So I'll be able to like have something to stitch as a sewing allowance at the edge. You can see that. So this particular one, I'm going to turn it over on the stay itself. You can see that I'll turn it over on the facing. I said facing. I'll turn it over on the fusing. Sorry. So now I'm going to turn it like this. You can see. Make sure it is balanced. So I'm going to cut. And as you can see on that one also, I'm leaving like a quarter of an inch at that edge also, or even half of an inch. You're still going to like trim it out later. You can see that. You can see that I have an extra allowance at that side. You can see. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch this edge, all of that side, all at the side of the fusing, at the side of the stay. I'm going to stitch it. You can see after stitching it, this is what I'm going to have. So the next thing I'm going to do now is just trim out all this edge, just like that. Just trim it out. Just take your time and make sure it is straight. Don't cut the stitches. Just leave like a tiny fabric between the stitch and what you're cutting. You can see that. And here also. So you can see what we have. So after that, I'm also going to trim out this one, but I'm also going to leave an allowance because that would be for my turn up. I hope you guys are understanding what I'm doing. If you don't understand, drop a comment in the comment section below. After dropping this video, the very first day, I'll be there to respond to all the comments. Yes, but I used to get quite a few comments, so I'll be there to respond to your comments. If you may drop a comment at the first hours I release this video. So after that, I'm going to get my center point. You can see I'm just going to make a notch at that center point. So that's what we're going to connect to our neck circumference on the bodice itself. So I have my center point. So all I'm going to do now is to turn this side up and pin out all the tips. You can see that. So the next thing we're going to do now is to connect it to the bodice. So right here, in order to stitch this, I'm going to firstly sew the facing. I'm going to sew the facing first. Then after sewing the facing, I'm going to connect the sleeve. But first, I'm going to notch my facing first. You know we have our first notch there. So the edges of the facing I'm going to notch is that's where we're going to do our turn up. The first notch is to get the center point for the collar itself. Don't forget. So here also this one too, I'm going to make a notch here. Let's make a notch like that. You can see. So now I'm going to take it to the machine and do a turn up first before I will join my collar. You can see. So we're going to have a gap at that point. You can see that. So the first notch right here, what I'm going to do now is just turn it to the back, turn it backward just a little bit. You can see that. And stitch that part as you're facing. You can see. Just sew in that place. So you can simply turn it up and give it a good ironing. Make sure you pinpoint that tip. You can see. So this is what we're going to have. Take your time to give it a good ironing, and you're going to do the same thing on this one also. The first notch, that's the second notch for the collar. So the first notch right here, turn it backward. You can see. And run your stitch. Very, very, very simple, right? So after stitching it and ironing, this is what we're going to have. You can see that smooth edge that we have like that. And you're going to do the same thing on the second one. So this is what we're going to have. You see that? So the next thing we're going to do now is to join the collar just like this. So we can have our neck looking like this. You can see that. So let's go back to the sewing machine and do the stitch. So starting from the center point, just like that. So the first thing I did is I stitched this part so that that place will be holding together and it won't be shaking. So I want that outside to be in the front normally. So I'll be stitching it. Okay. So from here, I'm just going to open it up. So the notch area will be aligned with the notch side of the neck. I'll be stitching like 1/4 inch, just like that. Make sure you're not dragging the collar. Just take your time and just stitch it slowly. You can see. Just take your time. So at that place also, you're going to stitch on top of that, yes, just like that, and end your stitch. So this is what we're going to have. Turn it inside and you can make your stitch right here. You can see that. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side also. Just like that. Make sure you're not dragging the lapel or the fabric itself. Just allow it to balance and just stitch. So at the last part, make it not just there, you can see. So you can see what we have. So the next thing you're going to do is just turn this inside, push it inside. Take your time to make sure it is straight and balanced. You can see that. You can see. Take your time, make sure it is balanced. So you'll be stitching the tip of the fabric itself, the tip of the collar, just from there. You can see that. It is very, very, very simple, right? I hope you enjoyed the video. It's very, very, very simple. And make sure you show me what you made. If you're not on our WhatsApp group, a link is in the description below. Show me the results of your own vintage shirt. Let's have a look at your results. I would like to see it. You can see that. Take your time to stitch it. You can see. So here is what we're going to have. Take your time to give it. If you like, you can stitch that edge all straight round. You can stitch it. But this is what we're going to have. So give your collar a good ironing. You can see how it looks. So this is what I'm going to look. I'm going to fold the back into two. So the back is going to be a little bit tiny, right? But if you want it big, you can. I told you guys to make it bigger than what we cut during the cutting of the collar. So all I'm going to do now is to just fold it. You can see that. And I'm going to take my time to iron it so I can have my lapel looking like a camp collar. I'll take my time to give it a good ironing. Smooth and iron it from the inside. And the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to steal the hem, which is the end of the shirt itself. So on this one, you can see what we have on the collar. Very simple. So just take your time to give it a good ironing. So on the hem, this will be our last stitch actually. So I already finished with the collar. I already ironed it. You can see what we have on the neck. So here at the hem, I'm just going to like sew it round. Some vintage shirts add an opening at the side. Some vintage shirts have it and some don't have. But on this one, I will not be doing an opening on the side. It's just going to be a straight hem. So you just fold it into double like that. Just like that. Just turn it. Make sure you're not dragging the fabric and just run a stitch or two. So after hemming the edge, you can see that. So I just take my time to give it a good ironing. Use a steam iron and make sure it is balanced. So this is our vintage set and I already attached my button and our shirt is ready to go. And I iron my collar so that it can give me the shape of the camp collar. So that is it on how to cut a vintage shirt. and how to sew a vintage shirt. And I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like it, make sure you give it a thumb up, and if you're yet to subscribe to the channel, consider subscribing and clicking on the red subscribe button.